back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We have the 25th anniversary logo. It is the bow tie for my one time. You were never my science teacher, but he was a science teacher. He was just a guy in the hallway that I would wave to back at Dundalk. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. We call it the Crab Cake Tour. We are at Drug City, and if you're watching out on the video podcast, it's right over Luke Jones's head. I have dragged him down here to Drug City. Also brought to you by our friends at Jiffy Lube. My little oil lights on in the car. I got to get over to Jiffy Lube Multi-Care. I'll be doing that. And our friends at Window Nation, 866-90-NATION. Luke and I got off a plane 48 hours ago from Arlington, Texas. When you hear this, the Orioles will still be eliminated. The Ravens will still be alive on the other end of London. We would be in London right now, and it'd be like midnight. We'd be all cranked up on warm beer and pounds and spending all that money. But instead, we're in Dundalk. It's my 55th birthday. I kind of low-keyed this Maryland Crab Cake Tour stop for a couple of reasons. A, I didn't know we'd be here. B, I thought we'd have a Game 5 tonight, or believe we could have a Game 5 tonight. And I thought, I'm not going to book a bunch of guests or get the governor coming over here doing anything crazy and then have to move it around. So for me, Luke was sort of the cop-out guest to say, you've never done the Crab Cake Tour ever, and I wanted to drag you down here to Drug City and give you a little tour as well. And George Scheulen is a guy I've been trying to get on the show for a little while. Did you not come down and do my show at one point at Costas, or were you at Costas one night?
The only time I ever saw you was in that old place over on whatever the road is off of over in Towson, where the
barn?
No, your studio.
My studio at the Sheraton.
Way back in the woods.
Oh, back in Hart Road. Okay,
yeah, Hart Road.
So it has been in the last 25 years.
Yeah, I did. I came over there and visited you, and it was fun to watch.
I had a whole thing. So you don't know this. When I was training in radio, because I was a writer like you, right? I mean, I was like a newspaper guy. I had never really done radio, and I didn't really enjoy radio. Like, I listened to a little bit of Phil Wood, but I didn't love radio as a medium. I wanted to be Oscar Madison, right? I mean, I wanted to be Mike Lupica, right? So for me, it wasn't about the art of doing it, but trying to make it interesting so it would be something I would want to listen to. And the only show I really listened to was The Grease Man. I love The Grease Man. So when I went on the radio 1991, December 91, into 92, I had been listening to The Grease Man for, a long, long time, a decade. So I was a music critic at The Sun at the time, and I knew Grease Man just a little bit. And I went down to D.C., and he had special... You never heard of Grease Man, right? You don't. When I say Grease Man to you, are your eyes... I mean, you've heard of Wolfman Jack, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but you've never heard of the Grease Man.
Heard of him? Yes. Listened or any familiarity?
George, anything you want to say about the Grease Man before I go any further in the story? Doug Track.
I'm surprised you can even say anything. That man was thrown off the air with some regularity.
Yeah, he was. He was. He's still on Facebook, and I see him once in a while. But he did a whole bunch of characters and he was a performance radio bit.
Oh, he was.
And this is, you have to put your mind into 1984. Like, Don and Marty are on TV doing morning news, this and that. Howard Stern, I guess, is doing whatever he was doing. Howard Stern preceded him. When Howard Stern left D.C., he went to New York. The Grease Man is who they hired at DC 101.
Okay.
So DC 101 is where Howard Stern really got his big break, right? So... This is in the 80s, and I never listened to Stern. I wasn't old enough for that. But, I listened to 98 Rock. I mean, I listened to Sarah Fleischer, and I listened to Chris Emery in the morning. I listened to Brian and O'Brien in the morning, on B104. No, so, anyway, so it was in the 80s, right? I was a radio guy, but an FM radio guy, WLPL, right?
Right,
I mean,
sure.
right? I mean, so 98 Rock, that sort of thing. So, The Grease Man is the only show I listened to that I thought was like a great radio show. He had sound effects and bits and beds and music.
Mornings, right?
He did 6 to 10 in the morning. Yeah. And he had all of these voices. So, I mean, I can imitate him a little bit in some funny way, but he's a genius. He's just a genius. I've done this for 32 years. He's a genius. So I went down there to see him do the show. And I often wondered, what does it look like? What does it feel like? I had been in the WPAL studios where there's big lights and glass and boom mics and, the stuff that you see now on their podcast, right? It looks like a radio studio. Like, the people want to bring their kids over and see mine, right? And you know what ours looked like, which wasn't dissimilar to what any AM radio station or, WKRP in Cincinnati would look like in that era, right, in the early 90s. So it's probably 1992, 93. I'm on the air 6 months, 8 months, a year. I put Jerry Coleman on the air this week because we did this Cuba story in the 90s. Yeah. Jerry Coleman, Kenny Albert. Kenny just mentioned both of us in his book in the early 90s. I'm learning how to do radio. I don't know how to do radio. I know how to write. I'm a newspaper guy, right? And the only kind of radio show that I thought could be sustainable for 32 years, I never dreamed of owning when I was a kid with you, I never dreamed of owning a radio station. So I go down there, and it's still the only radio show I've ever watched in my life. I got up at, butt crack of dawn. 3:34 in the morning. I drove down to D.C. You had to be in the building before 5:45 or they wouldn't let you in. Like, you had to be there from the beginning of the show. And I went in to watch the Grease Man do his show, and he had this giant space in his studio and this rolling chair and these flying sets of six-pack carts, 8 tracks, everywhere, flying with names on the beds, all color-coded, all written down. Everything he ever read on the air about Fudge Man and Throbbing and waddle-dee-dum day, all that stuff he did. All of this was in these 3-ring binders. You guys were both teachers. You'd so appreciate this.
3-ring binders, right.
This dude had everything scripted out, written out, completely binders of Fudge Man and Throbbing, binders of Clinton, my daddy, all of these shtick he did, all these bits. He wrote them all. I guess he wrote them at night. I guess he wrote them on the weekends because I know where he was 6 to 10. This was Luke. It boggled my mind. So when you say you came out to see my radio show, I integrated him into radio, stolen from school teaching. Like we just took phone calls and talked about.
I was on the other side of the classroom, and you're like tapping on the glass, pointing to things.
I was probably come in back in those days.
I think it was trying to tell the guy whoever was out in the studio with me, like that. Show me that paper has the phone number on it. It's like.
George Scheulen was a science teacher at Dundalk High School in the 80s, along with the great Dave Fantasi, the late great Dave Fantasi, who taught me 7th grade science. And Luke was a 5th grade school teacher. So, I didn't know we were going to, do this together from school teacher to school teacher. But you were the baseball coach at Dundalk, right?
I started in 87. I did 87 and 88 as the assistant coach to Bo Eibner.
Bo was my wrestling coach.
Oh, my God. Yeah, sure. He was Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's terrific. I loved Bo.
Bo was all about baseball and wrestling, literally.
And his buddy, his friend, the one he taught with. Anyway, at the end of 88, he decided to give it up, and so I was next in line, and so I got the job.
And that's that.
That was how it began. In my first 2 games, we won. It was 80. So here we are, 89. And we won the first 2 games, and I think we beat Kenwood in game 2, and we're walking off the field, and Bo had come to watch us. Oh, that's cool. And he walks off the field.
I always wanted to make Bo happy when I wrestled,
I know.
Everybody want to make Bo happy.
Nicest man. He walks up next to me, he goes, well, there's 2 they can't take away from you. I'm thinking, good job. You really got him playing well.
How many years were you the Owls skipper?
Well, I from 89 through 94, and then I gave it up. No, I'm sorry, 89 through 91, and I picked it back up in 94 and did that through I want to say 98, and I stopped for another year or 2, and then I took
That's
it
a
up.
Godfather. You come back in.
Yeah, it was like my wife wanted me to be home to help with driving the kids around.
I never knew teachers had a home life. Did you know that?
No. We always just disappeared under the closet door and came out the next day dressed differently.
It was like one of the the closet. Your bed would come down. You'd hit a switch when everyone was gone, and you lived in the classroom.
Well, when kids are 5th graders, that's what they think.
The funniest thing ever would be seeing, because I lived 10 minutes from where I taught. You'd see kids. The parents, you'd be out at a local establishment. You'd be a little nervous about that, so you'd always keep a low profile. But kids see you at Walmart or whatever, grocery store.
What are you doing here?
Right. They'd be shocked that you would be anywhere but at your school.
Where do you think the Kleenex on the desk comes from, kid?
Exactly.
Well, George was a science teacher at a tender age part of my life. In high school, I saw you every single day. Yeah. And Holabird, and then
at
at Dundalk.
Holabird for 10 years. And then I was over at Dundalk for 23, and then I was at Sparrows Point for 13.
What did you teach? What kind of science did you teach?
Well, in ninth grade, at Holabird, I was mostly ninth grade science, which was physical science. So it had like different units of physical sound and light and different things in ninth grade curriculum. And
I must have skipped that. I still don't know it.
And see, you like the biology stuff.
Right.
I was not a life science guy. But then I had to teach 8th grade one year, which was like, thank God Fan was around. It was like, Dave, what do I do next? That's okay. I'll tell you.
So his best friend taught me 7th grade science. We lost him this summer. So when we lost him, I had to reach to George to say, we ain't losing you till I get you on my radio show is what I have to do. So that's why I brought you over.
Does that mean I can die?
No. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere.
That's
You're
not
not
a
going
welcoming
anywhere.
thing to say.
Anyway, so I can't remember where
You're
I
my
was.
fans, 8th grade.
Oh yeah. So then I said, hey, when I went over to Dundalk, because remember we were junior high, and then when the 9th grade went up to the high school, it became middle school, Holabird Middle.
I was one of those transfer kids.
Yeah, and when I moved,
I was
up
one of the
there in
last
83,
9th graders to like
at
go
Holabird,
to
right.
a junior high school.
Yeah,
We don't
And
even
then-
use that term
So
anymore.
I went up. Many of the teachers went up for the 9th grade, and they gave me a biology class, Nestor, and thought they were doing me a big favor. So I had 4 9th grade science and a biology class, a 9th grade biology class, which was really smart kids, really good kids.
These were gifted and talented kids, right?
I didn't have the gifted and talented.
All right.
I had the honors class, and so they think they're doing me a big favor, and I'm going, I don't know anything about this. I'm like, no, I'm lost. I'm like a page ahead of the kids, you know. It's so bad, and I'm going to embarrass myself here a little bit. But when those guys became juniors and seniors, and they had Dick Herbaker, you probably
Herb. I knew Herb.
Yeah,
Herb was a tennis coach.
Yep. So when they had Herb would go, well, you remember in biology when you had, or your first year of biology when you had so-and-so, and some kid would raise their hand and go, well, we had Mr. Scheulen. Okay, let me go over that.
Remedial.
A little embarrassing, but
All I remember is going to your classroom and seeing the periodic table of elements on the wall.
you know what?
And and just thinking, I'm never going to get that. I better go into radio. I better go. I better become a writer.
So that's what happened. Then I became kind of a jack of all trades. I taught a math class one time. I was like, that was crazy. But then I was waiting for Herman Hunt, who was the chemistry teacher, and Stan Jablonski, to give up one of the chemistries so I could teach chemistry because that's what I majored in college. I was so excited. But meanwhile, I had taught physics with Gary Merrill, who was another one of the. There's never been a teacher like Gary Merrill, who was spectacular. So I was lucky enough to watch him teach physics, and he let me sit in with him as he taught, and then I taught a class. So I was able then to get
Physics.
Yeah. So
I'm 55. It's my birthday tomorrow. Teach me physics. I want to know it before I die. You spend the rest of my life trying to teach me physics.
F equals MA. You're good. Force equals mass.
Did you do any of that? Did you understand that? Did they teach you this at Syracuse or no?
Not at Syracuse.
High school.
I didn't take physics. I took Chem 1 and Chem 2.
Yeah,
I remember 8s become
I
X
knew
and
you were
I's
smart.
become Us's.
Oh, good for you.
That was
yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Lease at Susquehanna High School.
Say that again. What's that?
Acids,
8s become X and I's become
chromic
Us's.
acid, or hydrochloric or hydrochlorous. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Lease at
I always
Susquehanna.
try to be educational on this show, and right
there you
now
go.
I'm lost. I mean, and I'm
That's
not
about all I
usually lost
remember
on my
from
own
Chem,
program.
but-
That's
you know?
great.
Usually
That's
I know
a
what I'm
good little
doing.
mnemonic.
Yeah, right,
sure.
right.
Yeah, it worked. So I taught some chemistry, and then I had the opportunity. I walked in one, and I kept turning down the physics. Oh, you want to teach physics? Nah, better. I'm looking for the chemistry, and so finally I was teaching all chemistry. And I was like, yeah, this is great. I liked it. It was great. It was fun. And then I walked into school one day. Very first day of school. And I'm walking up the steps towards the cafeteria at the old Dundalk High School. And the science office was right there. And the science department chairman catches me as I'm walking in. I'm not even fully in the building. And he goes, George, can you meet me and the principal, right away? I'm like, whoa, I just got here. I'm in trouble already. What's this all about?
I haven't even got coffee.
Yeah, this is crazy. So sure enough, I walk down there, and I'm sitting there, and the two of them are sitting in the office, and his name was Dwayne Johnson. He was one of the nicest men you'd ever want to meet, principal. Great man. Anyway, he says, George, the previous physics teacher, just walked in and put his keys on my desk and said, I quit. Would you be interested in taking the physics? So about a nanosecond later, I went, sure. I was like, oh, yeah, I think I could do that. So I was able to take the physics. And it was the year that Herb and Hunt were both retiring. So they were, they didn't need that week before school to get ready. But I'm like, got to change rooms. I got to do everything. And they came to me and they said, what can we do to help you? Well, the guy before me was a nice teacher, but oh my God, he couldn't find where things went back to. Stuff was just piled on tables. So I said, would you just organize the back room for me, the storage room? Those guys sat there for like 3 days, talking, laughing, having a great time, organizing the back room for me.
I was always intimidated by your classrooms. They were always really big, and they had like these sinks, and you had all this glass stuff all over the place. Sure. I mean, it looked like an Einstein room. You know what I mean? It looked like a place that I never felt welcomed in the science department.
When they renovated, I had a room that had these metal beams across the ceiling you could hang stuff from, and the big pulleys with plugs, so you could reach up and grab, get 4 plugs real easily. And
see, I never talk science or biology or any of that with you because I would be very intimidated. I'm intimidated just entering this conversation right now. I am. Well, I swear to God, Luke, if I went back today for 9th grade, whatever it is, pick any of those sciences, I would struggle. I would be up all night trying to figure it out.
Probably 5th grade, too.
I'm okay with photosynthesis. I know how plants grow. But how about this? Okay, how about this, Mr. Smart Guy?
Smart Guy.
Mr. Smart Guy.
Yeah.
I own a radio station.
Oh, gosh.
How does it work?
Well, that's an interesting
because I don't know.
Because
I really don't know. Do you know, Mr. Hold on, Mr. Making fun of me, Mr. Degree Guy.
Well, you've been assigned a certain bandwidth, 1,570 kilohertz.
Kilohertz, right? Correct.
So you got that's your wave. Says. Yeah, that's your wavelength. And so when you broadcast, anything goes out on that wavelength. Then you got a radio or some sort of
that
receiver
receives it,
that
the transmission
happens to be tuned to 1570, and boom, there you go. So you're just broadcasting out on a wavelength that has been assigned to you, and that's why you get interference when a strong, like a 50,000 watt station runs into a 5,000 watt station. You're gonna get wash over, they're gonna overwhelm you a bit.
I told you smart. I told you to learn something today.
That's good.
Yeah,
now I've learned all I need to know.
Oh no! There's one more thing you need to learn. When you were a senior, I think
85
was the first year that the Powder Puff game began.
Oh, he remembers this. See, he's going to tell stories about me now.
I got asked to coach one of the teams, and I had the juniors. Well, he was a senior. And I like to think that I started his career in broadcasting because some fool gave him a bullhorn. Yes, it was me.
Oh, my God.
Some fool gave him. Well, I didn't give you the bullhorn. I was on the other sideline. I'm on the other sideline, and here's Nestor running up and down the other sideline yelling, Scheulen, you don't know what you're doing. Scheulen.
It's true.
Guess who won?
True.
The juniors won that year.
Juniors beat the seniors. We were led. Our quarterback was Shonda Brewer.
Okay. Shonda Scheulen.
And Anna Marie Cristello, I think, played on our squad that year. But
they were a great
juniors
bunch.
had Kathy Cross. I mean, they had some real.
Yeah, we did.
They had some athletes.
Jen Norline was our quarterback, I think.
So our girls got crushed, and the dudes were the cheerleaders, right?
Oh, it was
so
silly.
like Carrie Locklear dressed up in the girls' outfits with the pom poms.
And then back then it wasn't as.
We couldn't do that now. Couldn't do that now. So it's okay. It's been 40 years. It's been 38 years.
Yep.
Let's talk about it. So they did give me a megaphone.
Oh, I don't know who did that.
Man. This is like before I ever thought about doing
radio. If you could go back to a moment in time and change.
Move that micro, that bullhorn.
I did feel a sense of power that probably came upon me.
You were up and down that sideline telling me what an idiot I was.
You were the target. I targeted you, didn't I? I did.
You were all over me.
I'm glad you have this memory of that because I wish you. Listen, I always loved you as like the guy in the hallway. Sure. I always wish you were my teacher. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem, George. You taught science.
I taught stuff you didn't want to.
I was in the communication. I was with in the speech class upstairs with Miss Gatesy, right?
Right.
Now here is the true story about Dundalk High. And I did tell this story once, and I don't know in what format, or maybe it was a Moeller, maybe it was. Because he was the one who got me into the journalism class, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So
who's that?
The first,
who's the teacher?
It was Don Leifert.
Leifert.
Yeah, the great actor Don Leifert.
He was a good actor.
He was a great actor, Vietnam veteran, wonderful man. So I went over to the high school to get into the journalism class. And when I did, obviously, if you're going to be in a journalism class and Don Moeller, Mr. Moeller is going to move my schedule around, make sure. So I had to reschedule all 7 of my classes, right? So I'm in there. I remember, this is how I got to know Don Moeller. I mean, I literally was there half the day saying, well, if you want journalism, you're not going to have science first period. You're going to phys ed. Right. You know, A lunch, B lunch, C lunch, all that stuff. So he puts it all together, and he put me in a typewriting class because, like, how are you going to be a journalist if you can't type, right? So I go into the typewriting class. Alex Polanis was my typing.
Oh, I remember that name.
All right. So Alex Polanis, wonderful, wonderful man. He was a long time New Jersey in your place, Wildwood. He was a lifeguard in the summers down in Wildwood. Oh, yeah, he grew up in the Jersey Shore. So a good man. So Alex Polanis puts me in a typing class, and I get in there. And this is before computers, any flip phones, any of that stuff. It's and a white out and ribbon. How many fingers do you see here, Luke? How many fingers do you see here? I did so I'm missing a really key finger. This is sort of the TY, and like if I hit this, it hurts like hell. It's awful. So twice a year I bang it on something, and it's the worst 30 minutes of my life. It's awful. It's bone on bone. It's not nice. So I went into the class, and I'm trying to figure it out. And of course, he was kind of old school, you know what I mean? Sort of the prick as the teacher, old school, but put the white paper, took a sheet of paper and put my hands underneath of it on the keyboard. So you couldn't see.
My keyboarding teacher did that.
At that point, I pulled my hands out. I raised my hand. I said, I can't do this. I need to leave this class. I'm never going to be a typer. I'm never going to be a journalist. I'm never going to be Oscar Madison. So I stayed in the journalism class, and I had to move classes. I had to get out of typewriting. I'm back down with Moeller again. This is November. You know what I mean? This is 6 weeks in.
Gone.
No. I'm not. It might have been October. It wasn't long.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't sit in that class. Maybe it was a month. Maybe I gave it a month. So by my birthday, by this time, 1982, I transfer out. And the only class that's available was horticulture. Eve Lawless. So Eve Lawless takes me in, and the other part was Colleen Spivey Ireland had me for some, I don't know. I don't even know what the hell she taught.
Those are great names.
Whatever. Yeah. So I had a horticulture class, and any time my wife wants to plant things, because that's all she does now, because we live downtown, didn't plant anything. Yeah. Now she's got basil this and tomato that and plants this and like all that. I say, I had a horticulture class in 10th grade. I ever tell you
let me tell you about my
horticulture class, you know.
Me and Eve
were like this. We grew azaleas, you know what I mean? So I did that.
So
you wonder why I didn't have Mr. Biology, Mr. Physics, Mr. Chemistry, Mr. I walk in trying to figure out which chemical boron is the 10th element or whatever it is, right?
I walked in and tried to figure out which switch. Oh, damn it, that's the wrong light. So, that's what I meant.
No matter how much I liked you, or Urbaker, or Herman Hunt, or Merrill, or Stan Jablonski sat in this chair and did a show with me at Drug City. Stan Jr., one of my best. He texted me today. He's coming back home for a couple of weeks.
That's nice.
Well, he lost his dad. He was our. So one of my friend's fathers was a science teacher. I never had any of them. The only thing I ever did in the science wing at Dundalk High School in all of my years there was 6 months of horticulture class with Eve Lawless.
The science wing at Dundalk was the whole bottom floor first, right as you walked in. So it was like you had to work hard not to go in the science wing.
I went to the TEM, not the STEM. I got rid of the S. I went to the TEM.
He was upstairs and around rather than walking up and down the main
Luke is here, George is here, and you haven't gotten a word in edgewise. And I was going to bring you out to talk like teaching with him. And like your background, because people don't even know. We've been at this 15 years. And I felt bad in Arlington because he's next to me, and I'm used to bothering him at football games because we've been doing that until I got thrown out. Now he gets more done now that I'm gone. But I have in all of our relationship and the thousands of hours that we have discussed baseball, thousands of hours in 15 years, we have sat at 3 baseball games in our lives together. 3.
Yeah.
So we were at Game 3 of the American League Championship Series in Kansas City, Game 4 of the American League Championship Series in Kansas City, and now in Arlington, because Major League Baseball is the one that seats the media at those games.
Oh, yeah.
So the only way I can get a press pass is for the Orioles to make the playoffs and qualify,
Right.
and then go on the road.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
So that's how I wound up in the press box with Luke in Texas the other day. So we sat there all this time, and I thought to myself, man, we don't get together often. We're never on the set together.
Especially since COVID.
Yeah.
It's only been a handful of times.
I think you and I are in a room since Chad threw me out and I don't go to practice and I don't go to the games. Mm-hmm. He and I have been in a room together since COVID began. We don't travel anymore. You haven't been to a Super Bowl since COVID.
Yeah.
We did Miami.
Have not.
So this was the first time we've roomed together. Was in Arlington this week for one night, two nights actually, because
2 nights.
We roomed together. We used to go to the Super Bowl together and do but I feel like I don't have you on other than only talking about football and baseball or whatever. And I'm like, has a whole outside life in wrestling that people don't even know about. The people don't. He's a deacon at his church. I call him Deacon Jones, and when I called him Deacon Jones, Chris Pikus said, you have to edit that. I wrote all of this ish to John Harbaugh and to Steve Bashai. I wrote 10,000-word diatribes. The only edit Chris Pikus had for me was, you need to change Deacon to Luke. I'm like, no. Luke's a deacon. He's really a deacon.
The slightly less
That's
famous
part of the
Deacon
deal.
Jones.
Right, not quite
So people
the Deacon
don't know.
Jones
You never talk about your faith on the show. You never talk about your teaching on the show. You rarely talk
Syracuse?
about wrestling on the show.
For 2 years. Yeah, I started out at Syracuse.
I didn't know you were trying to
pretty
lose weight. Look at how svelte you look. And
He
look
looks
at
very
I
svelte.
look like David Byrne in Talking Heads in the movie. I look
It's
like
just
once
a
in
big
lifetime.
jersey.
So anyway, that's what I wanted to have you on today, to talk about stuff that you don't feel compelled to talk about when Grayson Rodriguez is blowing game 2.
I mean, when someone see me talk with you, they want to hear about the Ravens and the Orioles. I mean, I spend enough
That's what
time
you do,
out
right.
at the ballpark or in
Yes, you
Owens
do.
Mills, and now Orioles are done. Great season, but we kind of transitioned now from happy to be here to what's next, which is a good thing. That's a good thing in that progression. But
I told you it was going to happen right away.
Yeah.
I said the minute they lose, it's sign the lease, who we sign, because that's where I have to go, right?
Sure.
And I think the baseball offseason moves, and we talked about this at length. In the car, coming back. The baseball offseason leaves all of this oxygen out on the table, where the NFL, the minute the NFL ends, we got 6 guys that are going to age themselves out and cut themselves out and play themselves off, and we're going to move the cap, and then free agency is going to be 2 weeks from now. And, oh, my God, our coach got taken by the Bemidji Denver Broncos, took our running back coach, and then we got to go do that. And then it's, then we got, Combine's here. Who's looking good? Clemson kid. We need a rush edge. So it never ends. With baseball, it's like sort of watch the Astros a little bit here and powder yourself a little bit, and we don't have any money, and we can't sign Lisi, and the governor's coming on, and he told me there's a lease, and there ain't one. So, Wes, I'm coming for you. But baseball doesn't have that heartbeat. We're not taking phone calls tomorrow about, like, who the starting 5 are going to be in April. I mean, we don't talk about baseball like that.
I mean, you can talk about it, but it has a much more evergreen feel to it, right? Where it's like, okay, we can talk about that right now and say, okay, what are their offseason needs? Chances are a month from now, which at that point they'll be in the free agency, but we know how Major League Baseball has trended anyway. You don't see guys sign as soon as free agency opens.
Steinbrenner's not there waving him a check in the beginning.
So chances are good that whatever we talk about today, a month from now, it'll be a similar dialogue, other than, okay, well, Kyle Gibson's going to be gone, and Adam Frazier's not going to be back, and some things like that. But yeah, it does have a slower pace to it, and the NFL, I mean, it doesn't even end. It's a loop. It's just different people hop on and get off.
You're
at different
offended by
times.
that part of it.
I mean, not offended as much as I'll say this, and I say the same thing about pro wrestling. I have this conversation with my brother all the time, because it's, back in the day with the territory system, Andre the Giant would he'd be in New York, obviously, with Vince Sr., but he'd go all over the world. And Andre would be this massive attraction, but he was only there for a certain time. And there was an exclusivity to it, but then he was gone, and he wouldn't be around for another year. Whereas, like, the NFL, it never goes away. It never gives you a chance to miss it. As crazy as that sounds, and I get it. The games, yes. You miss the games and tailgating and all that, the experience.
Well, wrestling never takes a day off. It's a soap opera that's 52 weeks.
But and I would say the same thing about that. There's a certain element to that where wrestlers where it used to, with the territory system and guys would go in and out of different parts of the country. I mean, heck, different parts of the world. There was more of a novelty to it that now it's just, Roman Reigns or whoever, pro wrestling stars that you want to talk about today, you see them every single week and you never miss it because, there's no urgency that, oh my gosh, like
it's a fascinating thought that you like that baseball, and that's you're old-fashioned in general, and baseball's so old-fashioned that there is a point where, all right, season's over, we close down the shop.
Season is the key word there. Think about it. We have 4 seasons in life, right? And where we live here in the greater Baltimore area, you do get winter, although recently I haven't gotten as much.
I love fall today, though.
But that's the thing. You get winter, you get spring, you get summer, you get fall, whereas certain parts of the country, it's hot year-round, or it's, certain parts of the world, it's cold year-round, whereas like the NFL, it's always there. Turn on ESPN this week, even with some compelling baseball, not all of it was compelling because a lot of lopsided series, but they're talking about the NFL. And by the way, even in April, on a random morning on ESPN, they're talking about the NFL. So it's not me being anti-NFL, but it's just become more and more that there's no way you can miss it because it never goes away. So I don't know, and that's kind of where.
Well, that is a baseball thought that April feels like a long time away. We're going to have a winter. We're going to have a Halloween, a Thanksgiving, a Christmas, a Valentine, and then that's the beauty of opening day that people go out there and it's chilly and it's still cold and it's still whatever it is and it's opening day.
One of my favorite things, especially now since I only went to a couple opening days before I started doing this for a living. It was just something that I didn't do. I was in school and I was away for.
It wasn't a tradition you had.
And I was teaching.
Where?
So
Philly. Where were your opening days?
Oh, Baltimore.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
he's got Essex roots. He will get to his Essex roots.
My dad. I never lived in Middle River, but my dad grew up right across the street from Pizza John's.
Got Essex roots.
So,
there you go.
Yeah, Middle River,
Essex,
all that. But
one step away.
One of my favorite things about Camden Yards on opening day is it's an open air press box, and there are very few of those left. Even in baseball, they're open air, but they have windows that will shut. Yeah. It's open air at Camden Yards year round.
Yeah.
So quite often it is quite chilly. There have been years where I'm wearing a winter coat in the press box.
You can't sit in the sun even if there is sun.
Right. And you know what I think about? It's one of the things that, when it's March 28th or whatever, some years it's earlier than not. But I think, boy, 3-4 months from now, my shirt is going to be soaked in sweat just from sitting here. And you know what? When you've had a long winter at that point, and we're only a week into spring officially at that point in the calendar, it warms your heart a little bit. Now, the years where they haven't been very good, which is most of the time I've covered them and most of their lifetime at Camden Yards, you know that the optimism has been very fleeting at times, but just that process. Baseball begins, and I'm romantic about baseball. You know this about me. I love football, but I've never been.
Second segment because I have a whole baseball thing. I'm going to take you to on.
I want to talk.
So I wore my baseball jersey.
I noticed,
but I like, this is any form of entertainment. I think any form of leisure, you love it, but there's also. If there's too much of it,
time to turn it off.
You kind of get.
You go to Ocean City. You get down to the second, third week. You're thinking maybe the mountains.
And look, let me be clear. Anyone saying this, I'm not hating on the NFL is a major part of my livelihood. I'm grateful for the interest in the NFL. However, there are times of year, Nestor, where you and I will talk about the Ravens, where we probably wouldn't really have to talk about the Ravens in terms of there's not a whole lot really going on that's
let's
so
dust
important.
it up.
But
right.
And hey, people are interested in it, and that's great. I'm happy to talk about it. But I like baseball. I like the NBA, but I don't think about the NBA 12 months a year. I like certain things that go away for a while because when they come back around, you're that much more excited about it. I love Wildwood, New Jersey. I go there every July with my family. Every single summer of my entire life, I've gone there with my family. If I would live there year round, it wouldn't have the same feel to it. It would be my home, and I'm sure I'd love it in certain ways, but the boardwalk's not hopping in February. You know what I mean?
Right. So, you don't want to be there.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by that. And, believe me, baseball, there are things they could do much better to market. And, we've talked about that for years. We'll continue to talk about that. But
specifically now.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Especially locally with the Orioles now. But But there is, for me, it's not necessarily a bad thing that things go away for a little while. Now, they shouldn't go away too long, and there's a balance.
We had the plague,
but
we lost the football team for 12 years.
But as I've said to you, and the example I use with the NFL, when we've gotten to the point where, hey, a schedule release is great, but we know the 17 teams they're going to play as soon as the season ends, and a release date, an announcement night, fine, but we've now stretched it out where we're getting these games leaked out for a week or two at a time. I mean, uncle on that, and I'm not gonna back off of that. That just gets to be a bit much to me. But hey, who am I to sit here and argue with a bunch of guys that are billionaires and they just continue to make more money no matter what happens, even if their integrity comes into question?
Well, we're in Dundalk right now. We could be in London. Last time we were in London, This was the strangest time ever because, if I didn't have my press pass taken away, I would have been in Pittsburgh while you were at the game. Probably would have been in London. Yeah, I would say. I mean, even the expense of it, I'm happy to take that money and go to South Africa and go on a safari with my wife instead of spending $10,000 to go chase the Ravens around London again to maybe get their ass kicked. And by the time we listen to this, they're 4-2 or 3-3. But there is a point for me with having my press credential taken away and all that I'm like, I don't have to go to Cincinnati now. I don't have to, that's not the way I really feel about it, but I do feel like, all right, it's an opportunity to go do something different now. And I think the baseball part is when baseball's over, now it's time to go do wrestling or go do something with your niece or go check out an NBA game or hockey just started this week or you got your Turtles on here. Go see the Terps play or something,
But even
right?
something like that. I mean, and we're using baseball in the NFL. I said this to you when we were talking about this in the car, I don't get into college basketball season really until the NFL ends.
February 1st, right?
I mean, and look, it's not like I don't like it and then I like it. It's just you have we have
bandwidth.
Seasons.
We have bandwidth.
We have seasons. And the NFL, to their credit from a financial standpoint, because ultimately that's what the 32 owners are into, making money, at all costs, no matter what they might sell out on in the process. But it comes down to the NFL swallowed up so much of that oxygen that everything else has become such a niche, and that's fine. I don't lose sleep over that idea, but at the same time, some of the things that the NFL, has oxygen for, when you kind of take a step back, it's just like, this part of the calendar is really not that important.
Well, it wouldn't be in hockey season or in a basketball season to say, we're in the second quarter of a 4-quarter season where half the teams in the league make the playoffs anyway, right?
Sure.
All right, I want to break. Luke is here. George Scheulen is here. George was not my science teacher because I did horticulture. You didn't teach horticulture.
I did not.
You did not, no.
No, indeedy.
Could you explain photosynthesis to me as well as you explained how my radio station works?
Nope.
But you could explain to me M over equals F swivel.
F equals, that one.
What is it? F
equals MA. Force equals mass times acceleration. Psst, you know that? You're halfway home.
All right, I'm smarter than I was a minute ago. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. It's a Maryland Crab Cake Tour. Even though I had a delicious turkey, Rachel here, Luke's going to get a sandwich out of here as well. George, I had a chicken tortilla soup for my birthday. Very, very appreciative. We're going to give these out down in the lobby in a little bit, as well as a great liquor store here. I feel bad that I didn't tour these guys enough through Drug City, but I will. Our friends at Window Nation, 866-90Nation. I'm going to wear the funny floppy hat into the next segment here and pull a little string back here. I'm wearing my Aparicio Chicago 1969 throwback jersey here. Our friends at Raskin Global, Leonard Raskin also bringing me the crab mallet in, and our friends at Jiffy Lube and Jiffy Lube Multicare. There's one right on Merritt Boulevard, right at German Hill. My little oil light went on a couple hours ago, literally. I text my wife, I'm like, is that oil? She's like, yeah, it's oil. All right, I got to get the Jiffy Lube. So big appreciation to Jiffy Lube. We're going to come back. I want to talk baseball with these guys since I'm wearing an old school baseball jersey. George Scheulen was the baseball coach at Dundalk High School right around the time I left with Bo Eibner. Luke is our baseball analyst, and our baseball team is going away for a little while, or at least Luke says so. Back for more from Drug City in Dundalk. Stay with us. We're in the tasting room above the fountain.
Nice.